a 9-car wreck, a championship spot in freefall, and one driver who got so angry he could barely string a sentence together. This is the story of how the biggest favorite in NASCAR's Xfinity Series went from cruising to a record-tying win to fighting for his playoff life in about 4 seconds flat. NASCAR rolled into San Diego for the first time ever, racing through the streets of Naval Base Coronado, 16 turns, 3.5 miles. Total unknown territory for almost the entire field, except for Shane Van Gisbergen, who treats road courses like his personal playground. He came in as the betting favorite, sitting on 7 career road course wins, one shy of tying Tony Stewart's all-time record. He grabbed the pole. Everything was lining up. Then, on a restart deep into the race leader Austin Hill, overcooked turn 1, slid into Connor Zilisch, and triggered a chain reaction pileup that swallowed 9 cars, including Van Gisbergen, who had nowhere to go but straight into the wreckage. NASCAR threw a red flag, its first ever at this venue, and needed roughly 10 minutes just to patch the wall. To understand why this stings so badly, you need the backstory. Austin Hill came into Sunday on an emotional high. His Richard Childress racing team had won the day before for the first time since the death of NASCAR legend Kyle Busch, and team owner Richard Childress had broken down in victory lane. Hill himself said the moment hit the entire 300-person organization, he was riding that wave straight into Sunday's race. Van Gisbergen, meanwhile, had spent the week annoyed that people kept calling him the obvious favorite, insisting it disrespected the level of competition he was up against. Then he backed that frustration up by winning the pole anyway. Both stories were building towards something big. Instead, they collided, literally, on lap 1 of a critical restart. Here's where this gets genuinely interesting from a strategic standpoint. Van Gisbergen had already made one bold call earlier in the race, sacrificing his stage 1 points entirely, betting everything on a late race victory instead of steady points accumulation. On paper, that's a calculated gamble from a driver who trusts his own closing speed. In practice, it left him with almost no cushion when disaster struck. Watch the restart itself, and you see a driver doing everything right. Van Gisbergen got a great launch, found himself 3 wide, heading into a tight, unfamiliar corner, and made the safer call, backing off rather than forcing a 3 wide situation into a blind street course turn. That's veteran instinct. That's exactly the kind of decision that wins championships over a season. And it still didn't matter because Hill went in too hot, lost the rear end, and slid wide into Zilisch, collapsing both leaders directly into Van Gisbergen's path. There was no avoiding it. This is the brutal reality of street courses. Concrete walls don't forgive small mistakes, and one driver's error becomes everyone's problem in half a second. The bigger question now, was sacrificing those stage points the right call? Given how this season is shaping up, it's a defensible strategy when you're chasing wins. It's a dangerous one when a single incident could erase your safety net entirely. Reactions split almost immediately along emotional lines. Hill was remarkably accountable in the aftermath, admitting on his radio that he'd locked up the rear brakes and blown the corner, and later walking through exactly what went wrong with his entry speed. Zilisch, the 19-year-old leading his first career Cup-level laps, was far less forgiving. He didn't call it a normal racing incident. He used the word egregious, a term drivers rarely reach for unless they genuinely believe they were wronged. He acknowledged how far safety has come in the sport while still making clear how much losing that opportunity stung. Then there's Van Gisbergen, who barely said anything at all, and that silence became the loudest reaction of the day. He brushed off questions about the cause, called the outcome simply unfortunate, and when pressed on how disappointed he was, gave one blunt word that immediately became the headline of the entire weekend. So where does this go from here? Best case, Van Gisbergen channels this frustration into next week at Sonoma, wins, ties Tony Stewart's all-time road course record, and turns San Diego into a footnote on the way to the playoffs. Worst case, the points damage is too severe. With qualifying difficulties looming again and rivals like Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, and Ross Chastain breathing down his neck for the cutoff line, one more bad break could end his playoff hopes before the postseason even starts. So here's the real question. Was this just unavoidable racing chaos, or did Austin Hill's aggressive entry cost 2 drivers a shot at history in the same afternoon? Drop your take in the comments. Was it a racing incident, or did someone push too hard too early? And if you want the next chapter of this playoff battle covered the moment it happens, make sure you're subscribed to SportsWire USA.